Cool. So I think we are recording now. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Brad Christian Salas with Civic Nebraska, and today I'm going to be working on a voter registration training. We're just going to kind of be breaking down what's required to register to vote and how you can help others register to vote, as well as getting yourself registered. And I'm here with a friend from the League of Women Voters. If you want to go introduce yourself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Candid Villard. I'm the League Administrator for the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. Let's get started.
Cool.
So, this is your slide. Go
ahead. So I'll do this first slide. So when it comes to getting people registered to vote, there's a couple of requirements. One, they got to be a citizen, but they are eligible as soon as they become a citizen. There's no waiting time. So if you just became a citizen, make sure you get yourself registered to vote. Also, you got to be 18, but if you're 17 and you're going to be 18 by election day, you can register to vote. So if you have or know kids who are right at 17 and they're going to be 18 on election day, there's no need to wait. You can go ahead and get them registered to vote. One other thing that's really important is that in Nebraska, if you have been convicted of a felony, you have to be off papers for 2 years before you can register to vote. However, if you have felony charges and they're pending, you can still vote and you can still register to vote. So if you are kind of in that window, make sure you get registered and make sure you vote. And the big reason we want people to get registered to vote is because there's a lot of energy right now, and it's really important that we funnel that energy into positive, productive areas. And there's multiple ways to do that, but one of those ways is going to be getting registered to vote and then voting and participating in our democracy. So please, 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 everyone, please register yourself to vote and get others registered to vote.
Awesome. So something that you're going to need to know is what you need to register people. So what people will need is their full name, address, birth date, party affiliation, driver's license number, or the last 4 digits of their social security number. So that can get a little confusing during the paperwork because it may seem that they have to do both. It's one or the other.
Cool. And for the methods of registering to vote, there's a lot of different options. We're going to go over some today, but just really quick, you can register to vote at the DMV, but if you're doing it at the DMV, we use an opt-in system. So you already have filled out all the information you need to register to vote when you're at the DMV, and there will be a box that says, would you like to use this information for voter registration? So that's how you would register to vote at the DMV. You would check that box, and then whichever form you've completed at the DMV, they will take the information from that form and use that for your voter registration. You can also do voter registration in person. Make sure you check what the office's hours are right now, just because with everything going on with the pandemic, office hours may be a little bit different, but you can always go in to your county election commissioner and register to vote there. Nebraska also has the option for online voter registration, but in order to do this, you're going to need your driver's license or your state ID card. But it's a really great way to register to vote, and it's really simple, and you can do it online. You can do it from anywhere. And also, if you have people who need to get registered to vote, you can just get them a link that will help them register, and then just check in with them to make sure they actually completed that. And then finally, if you do voter registration as well, people can mail it in. So you would just print the form, and we'll show you where to get the form. But once it's printed, they just need to fill it out, and we'll kind of go over how you can explain to people how to fill out the voter registration form, and then they can just mail it in. But make sure if you mail it in, you include your first name, address, date of birth, and either that license number or the last 4 digits of your social security number, and you got to sign it. And that'll kind of be the same process for if you're doing a voter registration effort and you're having people do voter registration and complete them. They're going to need to complete all of those steps and really, really make sure people sign it, because even if they filled everything out, If it's not signed, it's no good, and you'll have somebody who thinks they're registered to vote when they actually aren't.
Definitely. So when you're registering people to, or helping people register to vote, the things that you want to say are definitely supposed to be minimized. You don't want to say too much, especially if you're not an official registrar. You want to keep it simple. You don't want to ask or answer questions that aren't yes or no, and don't ask them yes or no questions either. Remember to stay nonpartisan. You're not there to represent a specific party, you're just there to help them fill out their own information. So an example that we have here is, hi, I'm blank, I'm a volunteer, I'm helping other people volunteer to register, or I'm helping other people register and update their voter registration, and you can do it online or through paper. So that's an example of a prompt that you can say when you're out there helping people. That's very simple and to the point. If they say online, let them know that they'll need their driver's license handy, because it does ask right on that prompt at that moment, and tell them to please complete all of the prompts. Nothing can be left undone, as we said, because it won't be validated, because it won't be completed. If they say on paper, pre-teach them the form so that their registration will count, and we'll kind of talk about what pre-teach means, but uh, remember that you can't really say too much, because again, you're not a legal advisor or anything of that sort.
Yep. So this is kind of the pre-teach, and the reason for the pre-teach was just explained. So to register people, we really just have to teach them how to do the forms themselves. So what we usually do is you want to highlight some areas in the form, and we'll cover those areas in a second. But how it'll work is you'll give them the form. You'll say, hey, this is what you need to get registered. I can't help you fill it out. I'm not a lawyer and it's a legal document, but I don't care which party you select. But if you select the other box, and this is really important, you got to make sure people know this. If they select the other box for party, then they have to write one in for their voter registration to be valid. And then also you want to really, really hit on making sure they fill in the phone number, and make sure that they fill in the phone number with a phone number that will actually be able to reach them at. Because if there are issues with the voter registration, usually the election commissioner will follow up and try and get them registered and get whatever was missing or not complete on the form completed. But if they don't put a good phone number on there, then no one will have a way to reach out to people in order to do that.
Right. So how to use civicnebraska.vote. There's a definitely great mobile-friendly online voter registration form and vote by mail sign up at this website. So when we're asking if you can do it online or on paper, this is an example of the website where they would go to do it online.
Yep. And if you want to click on there for me, I can show people some of the features. One of the great things about this site is that not only are you going to be able to use it to register to vote, but you're also going to be able to use it to get an early vote, a vote from home application, so that you don't have to go into your polling place in person. You'll be able to just get your request sent to you so you can vote from home. So if you click on check, where it says check your status and register to vote, it will take you down here. And on the mobile site, it'll just do it for you. And you can either check where you're registered if you're not sure, or if you click on register to vote, it will pull up a form and allow you to do it online. So you can fill in all your different information on there, and then boom, it's done. You'll be registered to vote. So that site is really useful because you can register to vote there, and you can get your vote by mail request form there. And here's the thing, right now it is too early for vote by mail requests to be sent in. But when you sign up through civicnebraska.vote, it will save your information. And as soon as that form becomes available, we will alert you and send you a copy of that form so that you are able to send in that request so you can vote from home.
Awesome. Switch gears here. Trying to run remember which one it was. Oops. There we go. So next is our paper forms. You can find it here at this website link, or you can reach out to Civic Nebraska, or even the League of Women Voters, and we'll provide it for you. I'll click on this website just so that you know what you're supposed to be looking at. So this is the basic form that you'll just have to print out, and you'll be set to go after you print this out.
Yep, and if you want to keep it on there for a second, I just want to kind of hit on some of those points that we want to make sure people complete. One of those will be those 2 boxes at the top. You're going to have to check those if you're to check that you're a U.S. citizen or you're 18 or will be 18 by the election. You need to fill in your first and last name along with your address where you want to register to vote at. One thing that's helpful down in the next section where it says driver's license number or state ID, and then there's a little gap and it says the last 4 digits of the social. That's where we were saying you don't need both, but it doesn't look like you don't need both. So one thing I will do is write or in between those so that people know that they have the option to fill out either or and that they don't need to do both. And then you want to make sure people get their date of birth in there as well as signing it. And then finally, beyond the signature, the most important thing is going to be that phone number. So there's a way to get in touch with you if there is a problem with your voter registration. And along with your signature, you're going to want to make sure you put a date on there as well. Those are kind of going to be the key pieces, but you can't walk someone directly through it. You can't help them complete it. You have to pre-teach this to them. So like I'm doing now and just explaining it, you have to do that and then you hand it to them. And let's say you do that and then they hand it back and you see something isn't filled out right. What you're going to have to do if they didn't complete the full form is you're going to have to tell them, now I want you to take this form back and think about all the different areas that we talked about and all the areas I've highlighted and look and see if you've completed them all. That's the best way to make sure that someone is able to complete that form while staying within the rules so that you aren't helping them complete it. So the big thing with this is that there are people in our community who do not have an address to register to vote at. But what they can do, because everyone has the right to vote, is instead of using a regular permanent address of a house or something, they can register to vote with their permanent address being the address of the county that they're in election commissioner's office. That's kind of the standard for how people can still register to vote, even if they don't have a permanent address, because obviously nothing to do with someone's financial status should have anything to do with their right to vote. So if you run into anybody where that is the situation, let them know that they can register to vote using the county election commissioner office.
And do you want to say a little bit more about the signing the additional affidavit part?
Yep, that's sometimes occurs where they will just need to go in, but the best thing for what will happen and what will usually happen is the election commissioner will reach out to that person who registered to vote there. So that's why if you are registering to vote, really try and get some type of number, even if it's just the number to a shelter so they can reach out. And then additionally with that, people can also register to vote not only at the county election commissioner and put that as their address, but they can put different shelters as their address as well. And you can put the number for a shelter as the address so people have a way to reach you. And if people have a way to reach you and you are eligible to vote, everyone will kind of work to make sure that you are able to vote.
Awesome. So there we go. So for returning citizens, it's a common misconception that those convicted of a felony lose their right to vote forever, like we mentioned a little bit before. Here in Nebraska, we allow individuals who have successfully completed their sentence to re-register 2 years after they are off paper. So just because you have a felony does not mean that you cannot vote. So definitely just make sure to ask when you're seeing someone have maybe a question about that. Have they been off paper for 2 years? If so, then they can continue going forward.
Yep, and I would just add that when we're saying off paper, that means done with probation and parole. And if people don't know the exact date of when they got off paper, if they want to reach out to Civic Nebraska, they can reach out to us so that we can help them get that information and help them get registered. But we also want to make sure people don't register to vote too soon, because registering to vote too soon before those 2 years off paper has occurred is another felony, and that's what we don't need. So it's really important that if people aren't sure of that date, they reach out and we can help them find that date and make sure they're going to be in the clear when they register to vote. But also it's really important to make sure people understand it's not that lifetime ban, because so many people still think we still have a lifetime ban on voting if you have a felony, but that's no longer the case.
And in this situation where someone is questioning whether they can or they can't, it is very important to not only lead them back to Civic Nebraska, but also tell them, well, it's not imperative that you sign up with me here, but we do have an online way for you to do it, and then share that link that we previously talked about again, just to make sure that they know there's another way to go about it and it doesn't just end with that one interaction. So go ahead.
So students, if you're anywhere in Nebraska, you have the right to register at your campus address, or you can stay registered at like your parents' address or your home address. So for example, a UNL student from Scotts Bluff can choose to stay registered in Scotts Bluff at their parents' address, or they can re-register in Lincoln at their campus address. So it kind of depends on where people would like to cast their ballot. But just remember, if you stay registered at your parents' address, have a plan for how you plan on voting and being able to get your ballot in and turn out to vote. So whether that's voting by mail, or if you plan on making sure, you know, a couple days before you go back home to either vote early in a county office or go back home to be able to vote on election day.
So after registration, and this just means after they've handed you your form back, you want to thank them for registering. And once they're done, you would ask them if they would like to vote by mail, to give them that option, and we would usually hand them the form for that. They get to fill that out, and then they would be able to mail that back themselves. So if they want to vote by mail but complete a paper form, tell them they can go to civicnebraska.vote instead. But again, it can either go online or in paper. Usually at the voter registration stations, we have both there for them if they want to complete both at the same time.
Yep, if they want to do the paper one, once that becomes available, they will be able to do that one as well. And one thing I just really want to highlight on here is that once people have turned their voter registration and given it back to you, if they don't take it in themselves, if they've given it back to you, it's really important you get it turned in and get it turned in that day. So I usually, if I'm doing any type of voter registration work, is whenever I get done with that, I go straight to the election commissioner and drop off those forms, because you really, really, really don't want people thinking they are registered and not being registered. That's the worst thing that can happen. And that is something when we are doing election protection, we'll have people call and say, I thought I registered, but now I'm not, and they can't vote, and there's nothing that can be done about it. So it's really important, if they're doing it with the paper form, that you take it in that same day, so that people are able to make their vote count.
And before you start registering people, you want to ask the organizer how they are doing that part, because some organizations like our own, we take them back and we send them to the election commissioner ourselves. But if not, you do need to clarify with the people filling out the forms, this is where they need to send it to, or drop it off. So yeah, next. Do you want to go for this one?
Cool, yeah, I can get this one. So just some important tips. You want to stay nonpartisan when you're registering people. And that just means you can discuss issues, but you want to stay away from discussing political parties and candidates. and you just want to, if somebody asks you like, why should I register to vote? Have that conversation with them, but keep it in a nonpartisan way. So for me, I usually talk about how as a kid, when I would get in trouble, my mom I would have to write essays on civil rights leaders and the civil rights movement. And that was kind of what I had to do before I could go back outside to play with my friends. I would have to get that essay done. And that just instilled the importance of civic engagement into me. So that's why I think it's important to register to vote. But you should have your own reason for why you think it's important to register to vote, and explain that to people so that they know it does have value. And then the other thing I would say is that if people have questions about what candidates stand for, the League of Women Voters has a great resource. It's vote411.org. I don't know if you wanted to go into that website a little bit more, but I've used it a lot and it's super, super helpful.
Yes, so definitely make use of Vote 411. We have our voters guide that we also put out annually. So there's a lot of great information you can find either on vote411.org or lwvgo.org that will help people learn more about the candidates.
And one final thing I would add for people who are going to be doing voter registration, obviously you want to be nice, friendly, and professional. But the other thing you want to do is you want to walk and talk with people. If you're doing voter registration at a protest or you're doing it on a street corner, if you just stand there and hope people will come to you, they won't. So what you want to do is you want to walk with them. If they're going somewhere, just tag along with them and get them to fill it out while they're walking. And then you can kind of go back to where you were. But this whole conversation you're having with them, if they're on the move, you should be doing it on the move with them.
Definitely. All right. I think that's our last slide.
Yep.
But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Brad, for allowing me to help with this.
Oh, no, thank you. And we'll be around if anyone has any questions, and we will publish this slideshow as well so that people have all these resources in case we went through something too fast for people. So yeah, no, thank you for joining me. And I hope everybody has a good day and stay civically engaged and stay safe.
Awesome.